Guys, we are back with the Improvement Season podcast. I'm not going to try and do any sort of jingle for this intro because I don't have the vocals that our man Magic Mike over here has. How's it going, Mike?
It's going awesome. I was gonna say when you started talking, I was like, "Oh, where's the intro music? Where's the jingle?" But I guess not.
Not part of my vocal vocabulary. I don't know. It's not part of my repertoire. Let's put it that way. Like I do like some clicks or something like this. Anyway, uh, yes. So this episode, I think we're probably going to talk quite a bit about where I've been, because
Yeah.
actually we typically record these quite a bit in advance, but now we're up to. It's probably better this way, so the listeners know we record on a Thursday, and now it will come out on the Monday. Whereas before we were recording it like 2 Thursdays before, 2 Thursdays before it would come out. So it was like there was kind of a bit of a delay. So when people ask questions over in the hypertrophic time chamber, they'll get their answers a little bit more speedily and they'll know it's coming. And there won't be such a delay if people do leave any like comments or anything on YouTube. It will seem like we haven't just ignored them. It's like we can get back to them a little bit more promptly via this, if that ever needs to happen. So that's cool. But this past week, I've been away in the Maldives. So I obviously initially, I don't know if people keep up to date with the news, but Heathrow had its whole issue with the electricity because it's just like some freak accident. I don't really dig into it. I just know every flight that day was basically cancelled. Ours wasn't until 8 p.m. on that Friday anyway, so it's like even that got cancelled. But thankfully, we just got onto the flight the next day. So it's the same time the next day. We just missed out on a day in the Maldives, which kind of sucks because when you work it out, I can't remember how much it came to, but it was hundreds of pounds basically lost. And I actually just applied for some compensation from my insurance, and they were like, "The best we can do is give you £100." And I was like, "Oh God, that doesn't really compensate me much." But honestly, it was still amazing, and I can't be too upset about it. Like, it's a privilege, and I'm very grateful to be able to go there and spend the time and afford it anyway. So yeah, I've just got back from that. Whereas actually the weather in the past week, well, this week has been great. How was it the week we were gone? I was gone.
It was decent, to be fair. I mean, it was obviously not the Maldives by any stretch, but lighter, because I think when you were away, oh no, maybe it was actually this weekend just gone when you were getting back, but the clocks went forward, so it's
Yeah, just
definitely
as
been
we got
getting
back.
lighter. And yeah, the temperature overall has been mild. So compared to how it was maybe like a month ago, a lot better. But yeah, it's been decent, not amazing, but decent.
Yeah, we came back and I was looking at the weather on my app. And I was like, oh, this whole week it's like clear blue skies. I think
Mm.
tomorrow in London, at least, it's getting up to like 20 degrees, which is pretty warm
Wow.
for the UK and nice. For me, at least, there's a nice temperature where you can be outside, but not like sweating and have to be in shorts or something. But clear blue skies, not loads of wind or anything like that. That's like pristine, perfect weather for me. The Maldives was too hot. Like, it was 30 degrees and
Oh
most
yeah.
of the time clear blue skies. It was a bit cloudy some days, but it was beautiful. I did get a bit burnt. Not the first day, but the second day got burnt. So we both tried our best to like have like
Mm.
sunscreen on, not spend ages in the sun. But I think it was the snorkeling that ended up getting us because you're just like, I guess it's hitting your back. Charlotte's butt got burnt and the back of my head got burnt because that's like poking out. And obviously, I have a bald head, so I didn't have much protection there. So I actually ended up just letting the hair grow out the rest of the holiday because I was like, I need the protection. It was as
Mm.
bad as it kept me up one night. It was
Ooh.
quite painful, not like terribly, but it was just like yeah, a bit burny. But like you said off air, if people are watching, I've actually got a bit of a glow and
Mm.
have a quite a decent tan for me. I don't tend to like. I never try and tan. I don't know about you, Mike. I bet you're the same. You don't like
Yeah.
lie in a sunbed and try and like tan. Is nothing I want to do. And since getting burnt, we're basically in the shade the whole time and covered up for the most part. So I was like, oh, it's actually surprising to have come back with quite a tan. And also, it's that whole comparison is the thief of joy in some way. Everyone there was so tanned. Well, not
Really?
everyone. There was quite a few uh, kind of Asian uh, ethnicities where they were like under umbrellas and kept themselves like from tanning because that's part of like their whole that's seen as kind of more of their aesthetic that they like, which is completely cool. But to the people that, I don't know, been out there a week already or something and going for 2 weeks and go on holiday like every month, they were like leather brown.
Yeah. Some people are just like, yeah, burn me, burn away. But
Burning, I'm so annoyed that I got burnt, but it was just some patches where maybe I sweat and it rubbed off, and you can only do your best. But thankfully, no severe burns. I only peeled like a little bit on my head. I always know, like, if I peel, then I know it's like I've burnt a bit more than is like just a little bit that you don't have to be concerned about. But anyway, yeah,
I
that was the weather.
sorry. Yeah, because I saw on one of your stories when you were doing like a back double bicep in the gym that you had like a burn on your back as well, a little bit, or it might have
Yeah,
been
so
your hand.
that was when I like put on my story like a back double bicep
Mm,
after a very quick pull workout that I did. Yeah, I'd burnt on my lower back. I don't know, it must have rubbed somehow on there. It was like a weird patchy
yeah.
burn. And a bit on like the back of my arms, and yeah, some bits just where it probably rubbed off, and that happens. And hey, yeah, I did our best not to get burnt, but the burn didn't take away from the holiday and the experience, thankfully. So I don't know where to start with it. I guess we'll discuss it, but I don't know if you have an idea of where
Start with the
you.
setup. So what was it like? Because it looked like you had a hut balcony straight onto the sea. You couldn't see any other villas nearby or anything like that. So what was like the setup of the resort and everything of where you were?
Yeah, so basically you fly into Male, which is the capital of the Maldives, and then there's lots of little islands and like separate atolls, they're called, where there's like a group of islands within that. And so the place we stayed called Kora Kora, I can't remember the atoll that it was, but we had to get there by seaplane. So we had got off that flight, and then actually, this was kind of annoying. I forgot about it. We ended up having to wait like 4 hours for our seaplane. It was super annoying because you just lose time on the resort basically, and you have no food or whatever. Like it's just a bit of a pain. But anyway, I've forgotten about it, so it's not an issue, of course. But we got on the seaplane, which was actually very much like the helicopter. You know what we did
Oh,
in New
yeah.
York. It
Mm,
was more similar to that than like a big aeroplane, because I think it's just the size and the height it comes to and like how it feels. I actually ended up falling asleep because I was just so freaking tired.
yeah.
Because we flew at 8 p.m. of course and didn't really sleep on the flight, and then landed. They're 5 hours ahead, so landed at like midday sort of time, their time.
Mm,
So then, yeah, 45-minute seaplane out to it. So it was really in the middle of nowhere, this one. Whereas you can just, some of them are like a speedboat away. So you can see the capital of Male, like if you look out
oh,
from the coast, whereas we couldn't see it. It was just like you are in this like destination, just like on your own, secluded. And that's exactly what we wanted. So yeah, got the seaplane there. And then the setup is like the island's tiny. So you could walk around the island if it wasn't sand and there weren't like things to navigate on the beach, you could walk around it in like 20 minutes. Super tiny, like
yeah.
really, really small. And so like everything was walking distance. So like from our villa to like the gym was like 2 minute walk. From the gym to every restaurant was like 2 minutes walk. To the pool was like a minute walk. So everything was just like really in this
Mm,
like I said, it's really, really tight knit. But our villa, like you said, was on the water. And basically they have the island, and then they basically built like a bridge out, and then had, think of a bridge out from the island, and then each side of that bridge were like villas coming off it. And
okay.
so whilst when you look out and it was just ocean, to our right and left were two other villas. So it was like
Right.
there's quite a few there. And actually that bridge like out from the island was basically as long as the island. So it was almost if you
Whoa.
wanted to get any steps in, you had to like just walk up and down this boardwalk basically to be able to get any kind of steps and movement in. But yeah, our villa was amazing, like
Mm,
so spacious, exactly what you would want.
mm,
And as you saw, and if anyone saw my stories, and actually I did a reel just 2 days ago, which had it as like the intro, where I opened up like to the balcony, opened up the curtains, and it was just like looking out onto the ocean, and you could just go down some steps and you could just swim in the ocean. And the ocean was so warm as well. It was
oh,
like
yeah.
so nice, calm, and it only came up to like waist height as well. So like you could just stand up if you wanted to and walk around. So that was perfect. So yeah, that's kind of what the setup was like.
It sounds heavenly. And I remember that as just one of your first stories when you got there. Like after the airport, it was just like that intro of you walking out into the balcony and sitting down. It was just like, oh wow, this
Yeah.
looks next level amazing. It's just
The
yes,
best
okay.
kind of aria, R&R, rest and relaxation, not reps and reserve, that you could hope for. It was sublime.
Mm. And then what? So, because you got there, so you got there kind of midday, and then how? Because there was lots of different restaurants. I guess you also made a post about this as well, but I guess nutritionally, how did you? What was the food like, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, so the setup was with a lot of these islands, as you can imagine, because everything's just there, you're not venturing off anywhere. It's an all-inclusive setup, basically. And you kind of just pay ahead of time, and then you get some of them do like a breakfast and dinner, and then
Mm.
you have to navigate lunchtime through, I don't know, snacks or whatever it is, which would work because it ended up feeling like we're eating all the time because you'd basically go for example, go for breakfast, and then that might take an hour, 2 hours to like chill, eat,
Mm.
like just be there. But then lunch is like in like a few hours time because you've
Yeah.
taken so much time to eat the breakfast. So anyway, I'll walk you through that, or at least the way we did it. So it was all inclusive. So we had breakfast, which was a breakfast buffet. They actually served like 6 a.m. till like 11, and we're Charlotte's a night owl, and so like she wakes up later too. I'm a bit earlier than her, but when on holiday, we kind of flex with one another, and so I don't get up as early as I would probably normally on my own, but
Mm.
she goes to bed earlier than she would on her own, if that makes sense. We kind of work
Yeah.
with each other there, and so what ended up being our setup. I can walk, actually, yeah, I'll walk you through basically how a day went, and that'll give you insights into how the
Mm.
nutrition went. So I'd wake up normally around 8, and I think I said it to you on the podcast last time. I was like, if I don't feel like training, I just won't train.
Mm.
But I actually found on the first day having trained, I felt way better for it. And I think that's something to do with like the jet lag, traveling east is always worse for jet lag. I think we said that last time too. But
Mhm.
so that helped me. Actually, I felt so much better after training. Like I didn't feel super up for it, but I was like, oh, I just felt so good for getting a lift in.
Mm.
I think I actually did legs the first day. And like I said, the gym was super close. So I just like literally 2 minute walk. The gym had some bits and pieces of kit. It was Lifetime. No, what's that brand that gyms always have? That's like it looks really luxury, but it's not great kit. It's that one. It's like a yellow logo, and it's always grey machines. It's not Lifetime
Mm.
Fitness, but it's anyway, it's that one. There'll be
Yeah.
someone screaming it who's listening. Maybe
Yeah.
someone can comment on YouTube. And so I ended up doing. They had leg extension, leg curl, so I just like superset those and did some lunges and bits and pieces like this, did some sissy squats. Just basically every morning I do like this 45-minute quick supersetting workout, antagonistic supersets or unrelated muscle group supersets, and went pretty hard, to be honest. Like I was going as hard as I could. And as you know, Mike, like when you're traveling and you're a bit beaten up, it's like when we went to Austria and we went to Das Gym, we trained really hard there. And but when you're traveling and your nutrition's not on point, it's a different gym. Even you training your hardest is not like when you're locked into a mesocycle and you can go
Yeah.
at it. So yeah, I just trained like to zero RAR for most things, to be honest with you, and did quite a bit of volume, but again, it was not at the level of quality that I'd be used to. And also because they didn't have like a leg press or a hack squat or anything like this, it was like lunges and there's
Mm.
instability and stuff like this. So anyway, I still think it acted as a deload. We'll see,
Mm.
but that was my intention. And so, yeah, I basically spent 30 to 45 minutes there while Charlotte was kind of getting up and ready. I'd
Mm.
walk back and she'd be probably still getting ready, to be honest. And then we'd leisurely make our way. I'd shower and we'd leisurely make our way to breakfast at like 10:30. So it'd be
Mhm.
like every meal we were like the last people turning up. Everyone else had already done it. And then breakfast was a buffet style. So huge buffet. In many ways, it was similar to if people have been on cruises, it was similar setup to that. Not as big as those buffets because they're catering to, I think the island was apparently at 90% capacity, but that can't have been that many people because it felt very quiet a lot of the time. Like there was always chairs everywhere. There was always like empty spaces, but regardless, everything like buffet wise you could want for breakfast. And what I do is I just basically fit. It was awesome. You'd love it, Mike, because there's just loads of fresh fruit, loads of fresh veg, like grilled vegetables, all really tasty, but just loads of it. And then there was
Yeah.
just lean cuts of meat. So I was getting like some lean slices of beef and chicken, and they had like an omelet station. It was an
Oh.
omelet, waffle, like egg and pancake station, but I was like egg white omelet with all the veggies. So got that
Hmm.
done. Had the big plate of like meat and vegetables and fruit, like watermelon, like all the melons, everything you would want. It was perfect. And then there was also a bakery like
Ooh, yeah.
section. They had tons of baked goods. You could go wild with this. Loads of bread, of course. All your cereals. Like they also had curry and stuff, which is quite a like that
Okay.
Indian thing to have for breakfast. I think because the Maldives
Hmm.
is just off India, and I think it's like similar in how they do things in that regard. So anyway, I'd have like every day they had one different baked good. So like
Hmm.
the first day I didn't really cotton on to that. I didn't really know what I was doing, but after that I was like, oh, they rotate this one. So I
Mm.
tried one different baked good basically every day. And I put a few of those on my story, of course. And then after that, again, me and Shut, there was the things to do on the island were like you could go snorkeling because there's coral reefs. You could go just swimming in the ocean if you wanted to. There was a pool. There was a spa, but you had to basically pay for everything in the spa. Obviously, there was the gym. And then there was activities like you could play volleyball or like chuck a American football around, but it was way too hot to do any of that.
Mm.
You just immediately be like, I felt fatigued just from like battling trying to keep my core temperature down, I think. And then there was some water sports. So we did some canoeing, some,
Ooh.
what's it called? Stand up paddleboarding,
Yeah.
SUP. And so did that once and just like relaxing around the pool basically.
Mm.
Then we'd basically bide our time until like, I think about 3 p.m.
Hmm.
and then go for lunch. And then there was 4 restaurants basically. So there's the buffet place, which was where you'd have breakfast, and they also had a buffet. Oh no, they had a restaurant for lunch, and then they had a Japanese place, did sushi and everything there, which wasn't open for lunch. Only the
Mm.
like breakfast buffet, like only 2 restaurants were open for lunch. So it was like that breakfast buffet place, and then this like Italian style restaurant. And so we just flip flop between those for lunch, and both of them had like chicken breast, and you could just get chicken breast basically and veg, or like a tuna steak and veg. And then the other one was like had a fillet steak and veg, and I could also get like chicken or fish and veg. So I was
Perfect.
just like, man, on the first day again, I was getting to grips with things. I actually remember having some protein powder because I wasn't getting sufficient. Well, I wanted to keep my protein really high to keep satiety
Mm.
high because I knew I could really overdo it, and just
Mm.
why not keep protein high? But after I cottoned onto it, I was just ordering 2 mains. So I'd just be like, yeah, I'll get the tuna and the chicken breast, veg with both. I'd do that.
Yeah.
If I was fancying a dessert, I might get a dessert, but often I just got a fresh fruit plate. So it had
Hmm.
like dragon fruit, which I'd never had before, which is looks really cool, but it doesn't taste that great. Do you know what it is?
Not really. I'm getting kind of like I'm liking it to passion fruit or something. Is it like that?
No, it
I
isn't like
can't
passion fruit.
remember.
Passion fruit is very unique, isn't it? In the like, it
Mm.
comes in, it's like a ball, and then it
Yeah.
has loads of seeds in it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So dragon fruit, it is like a not like a ball. It's more like a pear shape, but
Hmm.
you don't really see the outside of it. It looks like a dragon egg. I think that's why it's termed like dragon fruit. But the inside of it is more like melon. So it's like a white melon with loads of seeds, like black dotted seeds in it. It looks better than it tastes. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
It tasted fine, but it looked really cool and it
Mm.
sounds really cool. Anyway, they had that pineapple, watermelon, like all of that. So I must have been getting like 15 fruit and veg a day when I was eating there. I was just like going ham on these things. So then, yeah, we do that. Normally get an iced coffee as well. Like they had a coffee shop, like an
Oh, yeah.
individual like coffee place. So get like a iced latte each day or a couple. And they also had a ice cream section there too, where you could get ice cream.
Mm.
That sounds better than it was because the ice cream wasn't great.
Right.
It
Okay.
was fine, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Came back and had my Ninja Creamy. I was like, this is better than that ice cream there. And they were it's really funny though, because for example, with the fillet steak, when I'd order it, it was like, if you got that at a restaurant, you'd be like, where's the other half of my fillet steak? Because it was maybe like 3 ounces or something. So lots of
Mm.
the like it was a bit hit or miss, but often when they'd bring out food, it was smaller than a normal portion. I don't know if they do that on purpose because they expect people to overorder or whatever, because it's
Mm.
you've already paid and you can get as much as you want. Anyway, so that was kind of the lunch setup and like snacks in between. And then we go out for dinner. And then this is where you had the choice of the 4 restaurants. So they
Okay.
had a Thai place,
Mhm.
and then they had the Italian, and then they had their kind of breakfast, which I don't know what type of food that is, like a mix of various things. And then they had the sushi place. So we could kind of pick and choose between those. We ended up going to all of them twice, but the Italian,
Okay.
which you'd be surprised about because obviously the
Yeah.
Italian does pizza and that's like a
Mm.
favorite food. It just wasn't the best pizza. I'll say that. It
Okay.
was fine,
Yeah.
but the Thai food was so good. And the sushi restaurant, I mean, it's sushi, and I never get to have sushi, so I really wanted to go there. And you could just go ham, like especially sushi's well expensive, and you could
Yeah.
just order as I was like, right, I have these rolls, this roll, this sashimi, this sashimi. I have some steamed veg, like just bring it all out, and they're just like, yep, 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 yep. So it just all came out. Uh, and then normally I'd have like a different dessert at each place in the evening just to try it.
Mhm.
So as you can hear, I'm basically through the day being a bit conservative, enjoying some bits and pieces like the baked good and like a bit of a coffee. And if the lunchtime had like a really exciting dessert, I might get that. But sometimes I wouldn't eat it all. Like I got tiramisu one time and I was like, right, I'm just going to eat like a spoonful of it just to try it because
Mm.
I don't need the whole thing. And if it wasn't delicious, I was just like, hey, we're not going to worry about it. But other times I'd have everything. So especially at the Thai place, I'm going to get the order wrong. You might be able to correct me, Mike. Mango sticky rice, or is it sticky mango rice? I don't know.
I don't know.
I got corrected on that, and I was like, it's just the order of the words. Like, it's not a big deal,
Yeah.
surely. But highly, like, I underestimated how good that was.
Really?
Had that on the first night, and had it again because we went to that restaurant again, and it was so good. Uh, Fresh. Do you know? Did you see the picture of it that I put up?
I did. Yeah. But even then,
Yeah,
I feel that the picture, you couldn't
it can't
get
do it
an idea.
justice.
Yeah, can't do it justice. So
No,
I can't appreciate everything that you're telling me right now because, yeah, you have to try it, don't you?
definitely have to try it. And that's why I love these holidays because I get so set into a routine at home where I just rotate between a few foods. And now and then Charlotte will like force me to eat at like a random vegan place. And I'm like, oh, how do I even think about tracking this or working this into things? And I just make it work. Whereas that was every day, every meal basically. It was just like making it work, making it work. And it's nice because it's freeing to allow me to try things that I normally wouldn't. So like loads of things. I had lots of things there that I just would never have ever had before, and different foods and things. So yeah, like at the sushi place, they had like some speciality cheesecake thing. It actually wasn't great, but I ate the whole thing anyway because cheesecake, even if it's not
Hmm.
great, it's great. But yeah, the standout was probably the sushi in terms of like I very rarely get to eat sushi, and it was great to have that. I can see why bodybuilders love it. It was a good reminder of like it is just like fish, rice, and it's so easy to eat a lot of as well. But the Thai place was by far the best food. It's funny, someone messaged me. This is how much of a small world it is, Mike. Someone messaged me saying they went there last year and they gave me some recommendations. They also said Ginger Moon is the restaurant of the Thai place. They said that was the best. And I agree, it was the best. It was so good. So, yeah, I don't know if
What?
that brought up any thoughts or questions or.
No, I guess, well, one of the main questions, it's not necessarily a food thing, but it's more just on the note of, you know, trying something different and being reminded of, you know, like not getting caught in routine too often. And I was wondering if you had any other perspective shifts or kind of reflections that you had after coming back that, yeah, that you just had whilst you're out there.
I definitely do. So that's one. It was just a good reminder of trying different things. Another one would be relating to phone use, I guess, and
Mhm.
social media. I think I'm really glad that I spent way less time on my phone. So I think my screen time on my phone is normally like 4 hours plus, and a good close to half of that I think is maybe on Instagram, something like that. I'm not completely sure, but I spent less than like 40 minutes a day on Instagram, And that's huge for me, especially because I actually end up spending quite a bit of time on my desktop on Instagram because it's easier to reply to comments and DMs and everything. So I don't know how much time I get on here, but maybe another half hour easily. So I was way down, and I saw things kicking off in the industry and like different things and like stuff like that. And it was just so nice to be like, I don't have the time to worry about engaging in that. And it was actually just very refreshing.
Mm.
So that was really cool. And purposely recognizing that there would be times in the day because there wasn't much to do there at all. Like as you heard, like there was F all to do, and it was very much surrounded about relaxing and eating. That was like that was what was to do, which was lovely. But there were times in which I'd be bored and I'd find myself reaching for my phone
Mm.
as just like that's a typical thing. And it just became very aware of my relationship with that. And so I'd reach for it and then I'd stop myself. I was just like, just lie down and be bored. It's
Yeah.
fine. So I enjoyed that, and I'm definitely going to take more of that coming like home, where I might on walks with Ada, for example, just be scrolling through Instagram and reels and that sort of thing, and rather keep my phone in my pocket and listen to a story, sorry, a story, a podcast or an audiobook or
Mm.
something like that, or even message someone and maybe leave them a voice note or something. I'd much prefer to do things like that. And yeah, just getting off social media, I think, has been very rewarding. And also just being aware of how much we have this kind of, because you get this dopamine release, of course, when you get like a notification or you see someone's commented on it, and just recognizing my relationship with that and how that might not be the healthiest. So that was a great reflection for me. And yeah, the only other reflection, I think I've already kind of mentioned it, is travel beats you up. It just
Mm.
does. And I said this to Charlotte. I was like, when you have the time and you retire and you have maybe more money to be able to put towards such things, you're not in the physical state to recover well from travel, because like airports and travel and airplanes and all of that, often people get sick. I did get sick, so I actually had a cold
Oh.
from like the second day in, which
Oh.
I haven't spoken about it because it wasn't bad enough to like take away from the experience or anything, but it kind of sucks. And on return, it really kicked me in the ass. I was feeling my what's it called here? The glands.
Console?
No, a gland like in your
Oh.
neck. I was feeling one of my glands in the side here, and it was a proper lump. I just did this with my neck, and Charlotte was like, "I can see the lump in your neck," and it was
Mm.
proper inflamed on returning. It's really settled down now, but like, yeah, that kind of kicked me in the ass. But I was just thinking, when you're like old and you're less able to recover in terms of sleep and the disruption there, your immune system isn't as strong, and then just being sat like for 11 hours in the same sort of position, blood flow's not as good, joint and connective tissue isn't as healthy. Like, man, it's going to be tough. So it was a good kind of be like, should travel more. And flying really wasn't that bad. One final note, I'll probably have more to say, but I don't want to just ramble on for the whole time. But flying obviously is something I've expressed I don't like,
Mm.
but uh, so annoying, but worth it. So with the flight, because we got moved to another flight, there was very limited options for seats. The only seats for us to sat next to each other were right at the end of the plane.
Mm.
And I don't know if you remember, but as we were booking flights, I was like, try and get them over the wings, because at the back of the plane is by far the worst for turbulence. And I was like, right, we need to like pay for seats to get them. So it wasn't crazy expensive. It came to like £100 or something for both of us to like get seats, but we got those along the wing. And man, both on the way there and way back, it was so smooth
Mm.
and so comfortable, and I was fine with flying. And so if that's how typically most people's experience goes, and I think it probably is, like I'll be fine flying and I'm happy to do it. But
Mhm.
it's a reminder that it's worth paying that little bit extra for that comfort of being over the wings. I did walk back to the back of the plane because to go to the loo, and I was like, oh, I can really feel the difference actually. So, and
Interesting.
that just would have kept me anxious the whole flight. So that's one final note for anyone who doesn't like flying because of turbulence, whatever. Definitely like make sure you get over the wings.
Yeah. It well, it's like with a lot of things. It's like if it's important, or sometimes again, like buy cheap, buy twice type thing. It's like, hey, sometimes it's just worth investing that little bit of extra money to have a better experience. And
Yeah.
another reminder of that. And
Yeah.
do you know what I thought of you whilst you're away? Because I was listening to a podcast, and I want to ask you a question. What do you think, if someone has a fear or something that makes someone anxious, what do you think is the most common thing people do for something that they're anxious about?
Hmm. My immediate thought goes to Googling about it.
Not quite. It's avoidance. So if you're anxious
Right.
about something or if you're afraid, most of us, or our typical like strategy is we just avoid it. Like, so again,
Sure. That
like
makes
you
sense.
might be afraid of flying, so you avoid flying. Again, it's kind of natural, right? Um, but equally, what do you think is the most effective way at overcoming a fear?
Well, it's experience, right?
It's exposure.
Doing the
It's
damn
exposure.
thing.
Yeah, doing the damn thing, but you do it in a very gradual, incremental manner. So again, if like someone's maybe afraid of spiders, they might sit in a room with a spider at the other end of the room, but maybe like very, very gradually over time, it's like they get accustomed to it. And exactly what you're doing, you're not stopping yourself from going on holiday. You're doing it, and I think over time, the more you do it, it won't be as such a bad thing.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that you can do in that respect is very sporadically do it. So I think
Hmm.
like I have got into situations where I have, like, for example, when COVID hit, couldn't fly for a long time. And that meant that I hadn't had that exposure for such a long time. And so it kind of built up that fear a bit. So yeah, over the last years, I've actually flown like a fair bit, not loads,
Yeah.
but we flew quite a bit,
Yeah.
like during my prep. And so, yeah, this year I've obviously only had the couple of flights. Did the seaplane as well, though. Not that I was
Yeah.
worried about the seaplane, weirdly enough. I think it's similar to the helicopter. It feels a bit more in my control when it's so close to the ground versus
Mhm.
weighing miles up in the air. And because it's such a short time, for some reason that really makes me less concerned about it. But to your point, I so strongly feel this way. It's like a fundamental part of my being that I don't want my concern or fear of doing something to stop me living my life. It's something I just like. My hate for that is so strong that I will do almost anything, even if it's way outside my comfort zone. It's like, if it's outside of your comfort zone, that's exactly what you should be doing almost. That's the way I kind of frame things.
Yeah. And again, like another thing that I know sometimes you said that you've felt uncomfortable with is like public speaking and like giving talks. And I think even though we haven't had the opportunity to do that necessarily in person, I think you've been doing like more like podcasts, you've been guests on podcasts and stuff. And I think hopefully even doing stuff like that, as well as you did the coaching course for JPS as well. So like all of that sort of stuff will hopefully be helping too. And it's just getting you out there. It's helping you again, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but a big driving factor for you is you want to help people and you want to educate people and like
Fuck that.
talk.
Just make
No,
money.
it's not all about the dollar, y'all. But yeah, what you're doing with that stuff is going to be helping too.
Yeah, man, it's funny. It brings me to a thought of, I don't know when it changed, but for the Revive Stronger podcast, every episode I'd get nervous. Every episode. And I'd be like a hot, sweaty mess on the other end. And I'd be anxious about the episode for the whole day. Especially when it was new guests or whatever. Man, when it was Mike and Lyle McDonald and they were having their debate, I remember being like truly so anxious about it. And just doing the podcast alone is way out of my comfort zone. It's much easier for me to stay and not speak and be private. But yeah, I don't get stressed about it now. That was my point, and I can't remember when it changed, but a good few years now that I've been way more relaxed about it. I feel much more comfortable and confident, and it is exactly as you said. It's confidence built from doing the damn thing. Same with even imposter syndrome in terms of my knowledge of putting out information. Like I used to be worried if I get critical comments and stuff, and it would really put me off posting. Whereas now I'm like, man, I'm like a professional natural bodybuilder. Like you can't really get much more like uh, credible than that in terms of like muscle building knowledge for myself, at least. Where it's like, yeah, yeah, you can critique me and that's okay. And I'm not saying like the outcome is everything, but man, I've built this up over so many years and I've done so many podcasts and all of this. It's like slowly I've got to start believing that in my own shit, you know, like not drinking my
Yeah.
own Kool-Aid, but being confident in like, hey, you actually really do know what you're saying. I
Hmm.
still catch myself. I don't think I'll ever hopefully get arrogant about it, but yeah, it definitely gets better over time. I'm sure that's happened for you too.
Oh, definitely. It's funny as you were saying that, I can definitely think of one. I feel that I got much more confident being with and talking with people from being a physio because I literally have to be in with patients. And so just having to ask questions, talking with them over time, that just really helped my people skills. So that was definitely one way. And one silly example also is my left and my right. So I'm a little bit dyslexic, and so I really struggle with left and rights. But
Hmm.
having to tell people like, "Oh, can you lie on your left side?" Initially, I'm really slow, and even now I have to think about it. But now I'm much more quick
Huh.
with lie on your left side, lie on your right side. So even something like that, it's helped.
So interesting. It's so interesting how people's like skill sets and those sort of little things differ. Like left and right for me is like literally I can always tell you immediately left and right. It would no problem. But when I'm thinking like north, south, east, west, I almost have to like go through it every time
Mm.
to get it. It's like certain math equations. Like some of them, I can just like I have the answer and I just know it. Whereas others, I have to actually do it in my head, and I'm like, man, some people can just do that for everything, or some people like learn every country in the world or every state or something, and I'm like, how? My memory does not work
Definitely.
like that. Uh,
I def I definitely think that for some people, again, it could be maybe genetics, hereditary, or something. But I think there are certain things, whether that be numbers, words, or other things, where for some people it just comes to them, but then with other things it doesn't. Um, Again, like I know that for me, like visually, like certain movie quotes and certain movie lines, like I could just reel them off. But then again, like things like left and rights or whatever, it's just nah, doesn't come that quickly.
Interesting. I won't finish yet. Coming back to the holiday,
Yeah.
one thing I will say that I did that I think really helped me. So my approach to nutrition, as you've heard there, was it was a combination of mindful eating along with rough guesstimating. So I still did go into my fitness pal and I put in rough numbers. For me, I found it's enough kind of precision that allows me freedom without stress. Like I'm not taking a food scale to any of the restaurants, and I didn't weigh like they actually had a body weight scale in the hotel or in our room, but I didn't weigh myself. I was like, what would I tell a client? It's gonna be bad data. Why would I weigh in? So I avoided that, and I was just very much guesstimating, and I didn't overestimate because I didn't feel that was necessary in the situation. It didn't feel necessary, and I also just didn't like to. I guess I can put it that way. I just kind of put in numbers, and I was probably undershooting if anything. And the calories I allowed myself was anywhere from 3,000 to 3,300, which is actually slightly more than what I'd been having even at home. But I was making sure to keep my activity nice and high.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of my step count, initially I was just aiming for like what I'd get at home, like 10,000 steps. And then I was like, this this can sound really extreme, but I think to me it's not. And I think, but to some individuals it will. But what I would do is basically keep my steps as high as I could without stressing. So like I'd just take the long route to the toilet. Or if we're at a restaurant and Charlotte was like, hey, I don't know, she'd forgotten something for her hair one time. I was like, hey, I can go back to the room. It's a 5 minute walk. And it was just like
Mm.
small little things I could do to keep my steps totted up. And again, in the evening, Charlotte would be getting ready. And again, I'm ready in 5 minutes. She's taking 45 minutes, whatever. So I just was like, right, I'm actually going to go to the gym and I'm going to walk on the treadmill slowly and watch. I was watching Daredevil, which is freaking awesome, by the way, on
Oh,
Disney
okay.
Plus. It's really good. Highly
Okay.
recommend it.
No,
Anyone
definitely.
who's watching it will agree with me. I think it's so good. But I just watched like an episode of Daredevil for like 30, 40 minutes whilst walking like, I think it was like 5 kilometers per hour or something. So like a pretty casual walk. And it
Hmm.
was just enough to help buffer because I wanted to try all the foods. But I also knew I didn't want to come back and set myself back kilos of body fat. So I was like, I could just sit down and watch this, or I could just do a leisurely walk here that's not stressing me out. So I just did that. It was actually really nice. I enjoyed it a lot. It was nice to be able to do it in like the air conditioned gym and everything. So that was quite nice. So those things I did. And then in terms of being mindful, like I said, I kept my protein, like it was 200 grams plus a day. And I was having tons of fruit and veg, like 15, like I said, tons of it. So I was like, if I'm hungry, I'm going to allow myself to eat. So I like ate to hunger. Like I was making sure I was definitely not over hungry. And I regulated that by having a similar appetite to what I was before I went. So like say I'm generally like a 7 out of 10 in terms of hunger through the day on average, or a 6 out of 10, whatever. I would do the same on holiday. So I just make sure to be around the same sort of like, it's like a RAR for hunger, you know, like
Yeah.
you're trying to hit, you're in a different gym, different machine, you aim for a 2 RAR, just match like for like. And I was kind of doing the same for my hunger. So I allowed my hunger cues to kind of do that. So there's some times where I was like, in my head, I shouldn't be eating this much, but I'm hungry. So I'm going to do it, and I'm enjoying it. And I don't think it was moderated enough by, like I said, the high protein intake, high fruit and veg, and not going crazy on palatable foods. So it was a really nice middle ground, and I was very satisfied with my approach there. The weird thing that happened, Mike, is I came back and weighed myself, and I haven't talked about my scale weight on social media or anywhere yet because I'm still getting to grips with what it's doing. But I wish I had it, because I have some questions, because we might do a bit of Q&A. I have it up here, so I can't go to the app where it's got my weigh-ins. But I came back and I weighed myself. We got back on the Saturday night, so Sunday I weighed myself, and I was expecting that I might even be up because it was travel and sometimes you retain fluid and that sort of thing. But it was an extra long day because we gained 5 hours. So,
Yeah.
and the airplane food is not good. So I was eating bits of it, but airplane food is just it's not much and it's not substantive. So I was basically eating lots of like, I had protein sachets that I'd make into like pastes. And so I was doing a lot of that. So my food volume that day was low. So it actually isn't, in hindsight, super surprising. I came back and I left around 180 pounds. I came back and I was under 175 pounds. So I was down 6 pounds. And then the next day I weighed in and I was a pound down again after getting my food pretty much back exactly to what it was before I went. But I left it, and this is just a good reminder, and this is why I'm bringing it up for myself and for others, to give it time. Sometimes the data is not helping you in the short term, and you need to take a longer term perspective and trust your numbers from previous. Every day I've gained about 2 pounds. So I'm now back up almost at like 179 pounds. So I'm very close to the weight that I left on. So I don't know what exactly happened, apart from I know on holiday my carbs were way lower and my fats were way higher. Because as you can imagine, the veggies I was eating, often there was oil on. The meats I was eating, there was often olive oil on. And so I was having way less like starchy carbs, and like the dinners were like pizza and sushi, like with salmon and like avocado and stuff. And then the Thai place was like, I had like fried chicken wings, I had like chicken satay and like all of this, like Thai green curry. So it was all much higher fats. My fats were way higher, my carbs were much lower. So I think it was a combination of that, and maybe mostly just fluid shift, I think, and maybe something related to my sickness. But it was kind of wild to see my weight so much lower. But I think on reflection, when I was in the gym the first days, I was quite flat. And I think that was like due to carb being a bit depleted of that. And maybe some stress related kind of water retention before going, in terms of I ran that mesocycle quite a long time. And so maybe I had just a stress dump afterwards where I dropped some like cortisol related water retention. But I'm glad my weight's coming back up to where it was, because I was like, I didn't want to gain weight, but I also really didn't want to have done like a harsh mini cut, because that's not going to have set me up very well for like a long time massing now in terms of like fatigue and stuff. I'm going to have to like take a deload in a week.
Was that, because I'm curious about, so when your weight dropped again the next day, was that what your mental self-talk was in terms of, trust the data? What was your mental self-talk when that happened?
It was just like, that's interesting. It's one way in. Let's give it a bit more time. I've just got much better at doing that, where it's just like, give it time. It will work itself out. And if it kept dipping, then yeah, I might have made a change, but I was just like, give it time. And yeah, it's just so great to just have patience, and there's no rush for muscle building. Like I
Nope.
felt I was training well in the gym. I felt all right. Things were moving in the right direction. It's like you don't need to stress about that one piece of data that ultimately it could just be like a red herring. So yeah, the only thing I will say is my hunger was quite high days coming back too. But I was like, is that because my sleep hasn't been as good and I'm a bit sick?
Yeah.
So it was like hunger is just so multifaceted. You can't be used well in such disparate conditions. But I was talking to Charlotte. There was no way I could. Maybe I could have lost like half a pound on holiday somehow, if
Mm.
I actually was overestimating my food and whatever. I underestimated how much activity we were doing, but really, truly, we were not doing a lot.
Mm.
And I was just like, there's no way I've lost weight on holiday. If anything, I thought I would have gained like maybe half a pound. I was going to be happy with that. I was like, if I've gained a pound, half a pound, I wouldn't change anything. But I think
Mm.
I probably just maintained. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
where it is.
No, that's super cool. I was gonna. Oh, there was a question. Oh yeah. Obviously with the with kind of, I guess, macros being a bit different in terms of bit more fat versus carbs whilst you're away. Did you notice a difference in how you felt, either energy wise or just generally?
Too much go like if I changed just that one variable, Mike, I think I could maybe get an idea. Way too many other variables. It
Gotcha.
was way, way hotter there. I think that might have played into
Mm.
my weight as well. Like
Yeah.
30 degrees there, of course. I got sunburn. My sleep was way worse for the first few days there because of jet lag. So yeah, I honestly too many variables to be able to tell you anything of value in
Sure.
that. I just can't. There's too many things muddying the waters of data assessment.
Mm. Did you feel as well? This is a little bit non-nutritional, but did you feel that you were able to relax straight away, or did it take you a couple of days to kind of really just really fully unwind?
Honestly, I was actually surprised how quickly I felt like I could switch off. It was
Mm.
almost once. It was like as soon as we'd landed, I was just like, I'm in holiday mode. Like, let's just chill. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was really great, and I'm very thankful. I had a few emails come through from some clients, but when those came through, I just like said, "Hey, I'll get back to this once I'm home," and they were really chill about it because yeah, they knew that ahead of time anyway. For those listening, it's not like I was not doing work that I should have been doing. They knew, and I
Mm.
had one competitor reach out, and that was fine. Just like navigated that nice and smoothly. Otherwise, no one really like other competitors could have reached out, but they did decide not to, which I really appreciate. And they got back to me like on the Sunday when I got back. So yeah, I could truly, really switch off, which was really nice actually.
Awesome. Yeah, so good. There was another question, but I've just gone blank all of a sudden. Um, oh,
How was your week?
it was good. Again, I was kind of living vicariously through you a little bit, and I, again, it's just reminded me like, oh, do you know what? I would love to go somewhere at some point this year, but I might have mentioned it on an
You
earlier
should.
podcast. I will, and I will. It's just right now I'm in the midst of potentially moving house, and so I want to get
Yes.
this ticked off first before I kind of think about potential holidays or anything like that. So, but again, oh, that, and I thought of the question I was going to ask you, but yeah, it definitely made me think, hey, holidays are good. You know, it's for multiple different reasons. So, yeah, it was a good kind of reminder for me during that time. But the question that I was actually thought of that I was going to ask you was, I have you or are you either you and Charlotte thinking about another holiday later this year? Like, have you got that far?
So yeah, it's funny you say that because on the holiday itself, we are like, we need to book our next holiday.
Yeah.
So that is in our. We need to stay. I need to stay on top of Charlotte. We're both bad for this, where we get very lost in our work and day-to-day routines, which I can already see is happening to her big time. And so I want to, if we can, this weekend find some time to like map at least a date of when we're looking to go. We've already discussed places. I said to her, we both need to come to the table with 1 to 2 locations and then slowly like pull away. I think I know one of my locations is Canada. Like I definitely
Oh,
want to go. I don't know where my other one is. I want to go to Japan, but I don't know how much Charlotte wants to do Japan. And so that might be a trip that I have to do with someone else or on my own. I don't know. So,
mm.
but how about have you thought enough have you thought ahead of where places you might want to go and what sort of holiday you want to do?
Yeah. So Japan is up there for
Right.
sure. They sometimes say April's the best time to go, funnily enough. But Japan is like really high on my list, but that might be a next year thing potentially.
It's
Um,
quite a
and
big, it's a big trip. Like it's a big holiday. It's not like
yeah.
you can do like a weekend in Europe, but if you go to Japan, you want like at least like 10 days maybe.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's just so much that you
And
need to
it's a
see.
long
So
flight.
definitely. I don't know how long the flight is to Japan,
I think it's
but
potentially like 12 to 14 hours from the UK, something like that.
yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
like one of the furthest places we could go outside of like New Zealand or somewhere.
Yeah, it's not much. Yeah, it's not much different.
Yeah. But other places, I don't know why, but places like Malaysia and Thailand are also really appealing to me. I saw, and Singapore, because I saw last year when Steph Noble went out to do some judging at kind of the WMBF Malaysia, WMBF Singapore. It just looked so good. And again, like I love that part of the world. So, potentially going out there would be really cool. Uh, those are definitely some that spring to mind. Sometimes doing something that you and Charlotte did, like maybe just going somewhere like Spain and just having like a really chilled long weekend, somewhere warm, somewhere hot, just have a bit of a chilled weekend, something like that. And it might not even be a holiday, but again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, WMBF Worlds is in LA this year, I think. And I'm like, oh, could I do it? Maybe. I don't know. So yeah, those are kind of off the top of
Yeah.
my head.
You have to have a think about that as well. Like if we could go out there together and like do it as a like work slash holiday thing out there. Have to look at timelines and where Charlotte is with things and everything because the worst thing is with Ada, not worst thing, it's not
Yeah.
terrible. In fact,
No.
she gets a bit of a holiday when we go away because she had dog
It's
carers come here and they're sending us photos of her every day, like running around with other dogs and playing and all of this. So she gets even more attention and spoiled when she has dog care. Uh,
exactly. So it's like a little doggy holiday for her.
yeah, absolutely. How's the house thing going? Is that processing
So
okay?
it's
How much do
okay.
you speak?
No, I can speak a lot about it. It as anybody who's moved house will relate to. It's the solicitor slash legal process that is kind of the slow bit, and I have to move out of my current place on the 20th of April. And initially, it seemed like, hey, that won't be an issue at all, because also I'm a first time buyer and there isn't a massive kind of ladder or whatever kind of
Is there a
so
chain?
it's
Other
chain
people?
exactly. There isn't a chain or
Oh,
anything.
okay, so it should be fine.
So, it should theoretically be quite a quick process, but it feels like it's dragging its heels a little bit.
Always,
Um,
yeah. Just chase
but
them.
yeah, so that's what I've just been doing. Initially, I wasn't chasing them at all because I just felt so maybe complacent or just like, hey, there's lots of time. But now time is running out, so I'm like, right, I'm on the blower to them
Oh,
like most days now.
I remember this. Oh man, the amount of chasing you have to do on these people. I'm just like, what are you getting paid for? Like, what are you doing? You're so slow. Oh, it's painful. And they sometimes they're like, oh, there's nothing we can really do. And then you question them a bit further on it, and that it's like, no, you can. You're just not doing it now. Like, I don't know
Yeah,
why.
yeah. I mean, fortunately, the estate agents are being really nice. So I know that they don't get paid until the actual sale of the property goes through, but still, they're chasing up the seller solicitors and they're doing what they can to make sure the process is as speedy as possible. So I'm grateful that they're doing that as well, which is good. So, um, yeah, and I don't know if this is true or not, but my parents said to me that sometimes solicitors charge you for contacting them because it's kind of like their time. And so
Wow.
that was part of the reason why I was reluctant to contact them because I didn't want to get charged extra for, I don't know, communications with them or anything. So,
Gosh.
but now I don't care. I'm like, just do it.
Yeah, you'd hope they'd say they were going to do that. It's like eating at a restaurant and you order all your food and then they, I don't know, flag up that it's like, hey, this was an extra fee or whatever. It's like, oh, I thought I'd already
Yeah,
paid or something. I'd hate that sort of thing, man.
yeah.
But I'm glad that's
But
all moving quite smoothly.
But similar to what happened at the airport, it's just a perfect example of what they call the DOC, the dichotomy of control. You just control what you can, you let go of what you can't.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think I said this to you, I was like, but you can also control if shit hits the fan, have a security blanket in place so
Hmm.
that you're not just like left not being able to do anything. I remember vividly, it comes to mind with COVID and the lockdowns. I was like, yeah, I think that Stoic philosophy is completely right, but that means also you have lots that you can do.
Oh,
So make
no,
sure you do
totally.
those things.
But that's precisely that's precisely it though. It's not about being complacent or passive. It's like, well, actually, right, what's in my control? Well, I can potentially book an Airbnb and I can like make sure that I've got contingencies in place. Like that's within my control. So I have to be active in that process. Otherwise I'm not fully taking control or taking responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's when people hear that saying, at least when I hear it, often associated with like, again, being passive, whereas actually it's not
No.
just passive.
No.
It's also like action provoking, or should be.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Have
Definitely.
you got time to get to some questions?
Oh, yeah. Let's get to some
Okay,
questions.
cool.
How many
Yeah,
have we
we had
got?
some. We have quite a few from last time, so I don't know if you have them up from last time, but I have them from last
Not
time
yet.
because we didn't get to all of them. So I'll just read them out. That's cool. Um, uh, And yeah, I was going to say we had some good feedback, but people enjoy these a bit longer. People are like up to 2 hours plus. I don't think we'll go for that long, but maybe we'll
Yeah.
hit like an hour and a half, that sort of thing.
Mm.
Probably both need to go to the loo at some point, something like this. But yeah, let's go over the first one from the Anonymous. And I don't think we covered this. They asked, do you still take any pump products pre-workout? Are they worth the cost? Did we cover that
I
one
think
already?
we covered that one.
Okay, let's do Kevin.Clark underscore. They asked, we might have covered this. What are the indicators that you are either at the lower intervention point or higher intervention point? Yeah, I think we did cover
We
that
covered
one.
that. Yeah.
I don't think we covered this one. Coach Ryan Morgan, who is my client, he asked, would love to hear your thoughts on only doing low reps and low volume for all exercises to reduce unnecessary fatigue.
Hmm. My first thoughts are that I don't see how that would be reducing unnecessary fatigue because surely you're still generating fatigue with low reps. Yes, the overall low volume, if they're doing less sets, might generate less fatigue. Um, but I don't see where the rep range would come into it. I think there is some research to show that higher reps is more mentally burdensome potentially, but
Some
physically,
calcium, ions, and like products from the higher reps. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I don't think, for me, at least in my head, from what I know at the moment, I can't see how the rep range would reduce unnecessary fatigue potentially. That would be more of a potentially a psychological thing. Lower volume, yes, but then again, is that a trade-off with progress? So, sure, it's reducing fatigue, but then is it reducing your potential rate of progress and rate of gain? So I think there is probably a trade-off there, is where my thoughts go to first.
Yeah, when I think about this, it's interesting, and I'm glad he phrased it as unnecessary fatigue because it's something that I have a hard time with sometimes when people talk about SFR, in that they expect to just be able to get stimulus with no fatigue. But almost always, if something comes with high stimulus, it comes with high fatigue. Like it's part of the cost of the stimulus is the fatigue. But
Mm.
unnecessary fatigue, I view that as things like potentially psychological fatigue. I think that can be part of like an unnecessary fatigue cost. I don't know, if you're doing an exercise that you hate and therefore that hate is stress, and you could be something you love and therefore you reduce this unnecessary burden, or joint and connective tissue fatigue, that sort of thing. And again, I guess you could put that kind of calcium, iron, I don't know the exact like things that build up and the exact mechanisms there. You could claim that is potentially some unnecessary fatigue versus lower reps. If the whole rep range generates hypertrophy, why use rep ranges that cause more unnecessary fatigue than others? But what
Mhm.
I'd argue is low rep ranges do have unnecessary fatigue associated with them. Any powerlifter will be able to tell you. You'll be able to say this, Mike, like when you did like low bar squats, you do
Yeah.
conventional deadlifts. And obviously it's not just associated with the lift itself, it's also associated with that load that you're using. So I think there's that problem. And then also there was actually some recent research, and this has always been like a theory, that high reps and low reps might hypertrophy your muscles slightly differently. And so it's always been a general philosophy of an evidence-based practitioner, I would say, to use the entire rep range to get holistic hypertrophy, just in case there's something going on there. And Menno Henselmans recently posted something in this regard where there's a study that came out and basically found there was different hypertrophy from low reps to high reps. And so you might very well be missing something if you don't go into the higher rep range. And then I know one of our fundamental philosophies at Revive Stronger is there's just complementary rep ranges to certain exercises. Doing bicep curls for less than 10 reps generally doesn't feel super great in your joint and connective tissue. And sometimes it's hard to actually isolate it to the bicep, and it's easy to bring in other like larger, stronger muscles. Similarly, doing like high reps for like a hack squat above 20 is just fundamentally not something anyone really wants to do. And it's going to be quite a lot of unnecessary and unwanted fatigue there. So there's all of that kind of situation going on. And then you answered it perfectly, I think, in terms of doing low volume. I was trying to think of a good analogy, but if you're doing low volume, with the research that we have in mind, if you're able to recover from more and sustain that, that is likely going to grow more muscle over the longer term. So yeah, you could do low volume, but you could be shortcutting progress, essentially, is what you're saying and what we're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that trade-off can only be made for the individual themselves, because they might not have aspirations to be a competitive level bodybuilder, and actually they just want to go in the gym, feel good, and then get out, and then progress isn't so important. In that case, great, do low volume, do slightly lower repetitions, all good. It's a similar argument to, hey, I'm not a physique athlete, I'm not a competitive bodybuilder, do I have to train legs? No, you don't have to train legs at all. You can do arms, as often as you want, it doesn't matter. So it depends on the person and the goal.
My analogy to the volume thing would be, why don't I just work 9 to 5 and never do any overtime? It's like, well, if you want to progress more in your career, sometimes doing some overtime really helps push you above certain people and might allow you to get that promotion a bit faster, that sort of thing. Sometimes like there's a dose response, essentially, is what's going on there. Nice, cool. Next question I will ask is from Nikias. Fitotransform_Fitotransform. He has asked, when you say refeed, what do you mean? Estimated maintenance calories or a slight surplus? And how do you account for it in total weekly calories?
So in my head, it kind of tends to go to maintenance calories. But on average, so far for me, from a coaching perspective, I've only ever used it in the form of fat loss and dieting. I've not yet used it in when someone's been in a surplus. So on average, that person will always still be in a bit of a deficit during the week. And was there another part to the question?
Yeah, I think you kind of answered it, because you said on average they'd still be in a deficit, and it said, how do you account for it in total weekly calories? And it's basically you just account for it by taking the weekly average. So in regards to refeed, so it's something, so I guess this might be being asked, and because there's generally, I don't think should be any confusion, because I think in the literature, refeeds are defined as being at maintenance, at current maintenance. I think that makes sense. And it's only because when I worked with Cliff, he used the term refeed for basically a larger surplus during a gaining phase. And so I ended up picking up that terminology, and I think I mentioned it in one post. I don't think I will use that going forward, that terminology, because I fundamentally don't know that it makes sense, and it might just lead to more confusion. And I will say, in the context of off-season, I don't necessarily often program it this way, But I might have days where clients go into a larger surplus, but that's just due to having a flexible diet where they have the opportunity to maybe eat out or what have you, and they want to have a few more calories that day, and then they just subtract it from other days. So it always comes back to what you mentioned there, Mike, the weekly average calories. And that's always what I would look at. So in terms of how to account for it, I just average out the calories and account for it that way. And in the context of when I think refeeds are most applicable, it's coming up to predicted maintenance. And I would say I tend to side with predicted maintenance or slightly above, because sometimes predicted maintenance, you can't necessarily exactly know, because there might be times where someone isn't even losing, say they haven't lost the last 2 weeks on the scale, but that isn't because they're not in a calorie deficit. It's just because maybe they're trying to lose at quite a slow pace. They're nearing the end of prep, and there's other influences on the scale that are leading to the scale not dropping. You wouldn't then go, oh, we're going to have a refeed at, oh, you're currently maintaining. I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, historically, your maintenance was about here, and then I'd put that in. So it's, you just get experience and you learn these things. But generally, I would say refeeds are maintenance plus, essentially, is where I'd go with it. And I'd prefer I'd prefer someone to be in, because of the tool of using the refeed is to have a bit of a break from the deficit itself. I'd prefer someone to be slightly above maintenance than risking being below it generally, but not always.
Absolutely. Makes total sense. And I think on the note of just terminology, I personally prefer to use high and low calorie days. I just feel that maybe the wording is slightly less emotive potentially. So yeah, I've kind of just started using that when I talk about them.
Yeah, that makes it a bit, refeed. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like diet break, right? That's a term, but sometimes people take that the wrong way and they're like, so I just don't have to worry about my diet anymore. It's like, no, deficit break.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll call it that.
exactly.
Cool. Next question is from Teddy Gross _official. They have asked, hopefully a fun one, top 3 worst / most overrated, most hated exercises in your mind and Mike's. Make it personal.
Make it personal. Ooh. This is going to be hard for me because
I'm glad he's asked you, because you got to have some exercises you don't enjoy. Or he said, okay, worst / most overrated, most overrated exercises.
Okay, most overrated exercise. Okay.
I would simplify it and just say, Mike, what are your 3 least favorite exercises? Bodybuilding related. This is Mike liking everything.
I know. Well, it's also hard. I've got to think, because in the moment, like when I'm thinking about my training, I like most things.
Is there anything in your program at the moment where you're like, you come to it and you're like,
no,
that again?
Genuinely nothing. Genuinely nothing. What's overrated? Have you got anything? Just while I mull it over in my head.
Yeah. I don't know why. For some reason, spider curls come to mind. I don't particularly enjoy spider curls. They don't feel very productive to me. I don't know why those come to mind. Obviously, I mentioned I don't enjoy training abs. I don't enjoy training like hip thrusts. I don't enjoy them. I don't hate them, but I don't enjoy them. Overrated. I don't know if I'll change my opinion on this, but I currently feel this way about rear delts. And anterior delts, I would say too, but I think anterior delts, like isolated movements for them, for most people is overrated. But I think most people recognize that and they don't do like front raises. Most people don't. Whereas I think rear delts have a very similar position to front delts for most people, where they do loads of pulling and the rear delts get tons of stimulus from all their pulling. And therefore isolating rear delts, I think for a lot of people is overrated. That's something I could say that I don't think necessarily everyone would agree with me. And I don't know if I'll agree with myself, but I've thought this way for a good few years, where I just think the rear delts get a lot of love through the pulling, and similarly to the anterior delts get a lot of love through the pressing. I will say upright rows a little bit overrated in general. They might be appropriately rated though. I don't see many people doing them. I used to do them quite regularly, whereas now I find lateral raises to be much more productive. Anything overrated?
You've made me think of one though.
Go for it.
So, hip adductors. So you know the isolated machines that you squeeze in. I I don't. I think that's pointless for a bodybuilder for most people. So because I haven't seen, I'm probably thinking more male, but also just female in general. Like I have not seen weak adductors really, and I just don't think it's necessary at all. I think you could, right, if you want to grow your adductors, right, maybe you can do some sumos, do some arse to grass squats maybe, or like a squat pattern, deadlift, like lunges, like far better. And I just think yeah, I just think it's better. And I think that hip adduction exercise is just way overrated and overdone.
I would say that's fairly controversial.
Do you think so?
Maybe more controversial than my rear delt comment. I'm not sure. There's a
No
lot of
way,
bodybuilders
really?
that do ad, adduction. Yeah, lots of them do adduction. Yeah,
Why? And I just think it trains them in a shortened range. When you train something in a shortened range, it's going to get tighter. So you're kind of like also then potentially just giving yourself tight adductors, which is restricting your mobility and other movements potentially. I just like,
I got to say I've never done them, but adductors, and I've actually only ever programmed them when someone's requested them because, like you said, a lot of movements, just like the rear delts, the front delts, the adductors get a lot of love through all the
yeah,
movements that you mentioned. It's really hard to remove them, in fact. So, and then many other beneficial ways of training them. And I would say abduction you could put in the same boat a little bit, just because the machine, I'll say the machine abduction is a little overrated, just because the
yeah,
machines aren't great and you can kind of max them out. And like, I remember I was using a gym pin, maxing it out and still getting like 15 to 20 reps easily, using yoga blocks to extend the range of motion. And I just think you might be better off spending your time doing other things. One other one I'll say, Mike, and these are all going to be out of a similar ilk. Shrugs a little bit.
mm,
I think trap development for a lot of people, they often come for the ride again with good back programming, and it's kind of time that could be better spent elsewhere. You could say the same for forearms a little bit, and I
yeah,
think similar. The big problem with maybe you said there with the adduction and with forearm work, I found at least, is it often beats up the wrists a lot.
hmm,
I've done it where I've injured my wrist because I've been so stubborn to do like wrist extension or what have you, flexion, and yeah, I've ended up hurting my wrist. So then I can't do like my main meat and potatoes work properly, which sucks.
yeah. No, exactly. And I think another thing is that and actually I just saw a post by Menel Henselman about it in the sense he was saying like, you don't get muscle bound with bodybuilding. And I would say it depends because I think if you train through a full range of movement, then you won't because that can help maintain or promote increased flexibility. However, if you train in a very shortened range of motion, the muscle is going to adapt to a shortened range of motion. So again, I think exercises where people are really biasing that shortened range, I don't think it helps people's overall mobility. And for some people that they might not care at all about it, but you know, for some other instances it might matter. So that's kind of also in my head why, like, for those types of things, I think, could you do it a better way? Could there be a better way,
Yeah, I'm
maybe?
trying to think if there's any other very popular movements that are overrated. I'm trying to really think if there's anything that comes to
Arnold
mind.
press, dumbbell Arnold overhead Arnold
Do you see many
press.
people doing those?
I
I
saw
definitely
someone in the
think
gym
they're.
doing it.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're definitely overrated. But I'm thinking specifically people in our like
Mm,
niche of things that they might be doing. Uh, I'm not really sure. I can think of anything else.
Nothing's coming to my head at the moment.
I'd say a standing leg
Well,
curl.
yeah,
They just kind of suck. I've never used a good
yeah,
standing leg
true.
curl, but I find them a little bit redundant because they're like lying leg curls, but you don't feel as secure.
Mm.
And you have to do one
Although,
leg at a time, which can be a bit annoying sometimes, time
if you
management
ever come
wise.
to my gym, their standing leg curl actually feels okay.
Oh, does it? How's it compared
Yeah.
to a lying?
Oh no, obviously it's not a touch on it, but
Okay.
I would
There,
say
it's still overrated. I hold my
yeah,
stance.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'll
There
say
was that. Oh, sorry.
I have one other thing that's overrated, and I would say like over obsessing about like minute changes in technique and especially like getting tiny little more range of motion. I think is a little bit overrated. I think the cost to benefit of like having to manufacture that is generally not worth it.
Mm, no, I totally agree with that.
What
Yeah,
was your
I
final
still
one?
just seeing people bands to make the top portion of like say a pendulum or a leg press harder. I still see that a little bit,
Yeah.
but that's obviously in my
Or
gym.
like I've seen that with leg extensions as well. I'm like, the leg
Mm.
extension's already hardest at that point. Like, eesh, you need a better leg extension.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'd say that's the only thing where I'm like, in my head, I'm like, mm, maybe, but who knows?
Right. I think this is the final question now.
Oh,
Yes.
amazing.
So, Aurora Mattison has asked, can someone be weight stable but in a low energy availability state? Is dieting inherently a low energy availability state?
So, would my thought there would be, is time a relevant factor? So, how long has someone been in a diet for? So, if someone's been in a diet for a long period of time, then I would say that, yeah, they are in a low energy availability state, probably. And I think also multiple factors can be involved. So, yes, the weight might be stable, being in a calorie deficit, but there might be reasons for why the weight isn't going down whilst they're in a deficit, potentially. So, those would kind of be my reasons and responses initially.
Mike, what would be the definition of a low energy availability state?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember,
In
so I'm
my
not sure.
When I think of that, I think of that as a similar sort of thing as being below your like intervention point of body fat. So in my head, this is the kind of thing that I'm getting to, at least with this question, I'm thinking is someone's asking, could you be at maintenance calories, but so lean that you're still not in a like healthy position?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where my head's going with it, because otherwise it is a bit of a strange question. And I think we both absolutely agree. Like, you can try and maintain too lean of
Mm-hmm.
a physique, for sure, but you can be at maintenance and still not be hormonally or like physiologically healthy at that point.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
could change your like energy expenditure to maintain and eating behaviors to manufacture like a stable maintenance, but you won't be feeling great and you'll have those symptoms of low energy availability, like potentially loss of menstrual cycle, or and you see this again with competitors that try and stay too lean, or they like again female competitors often do this where they compete too often and they never get back into a like well fed state, because you could be in a surplus for 2 weeks, but if you've been in a deficit for 6 months, you're not going to be in a healthy position. You need extended time with good energy availability. So at least that's where my head goes with it.
Again, that was a great perspective and great kind of clarity there. I think those were great points. I think it is possible because the body is highly adaptable. Is it beneficial? Obviously not. And you've got those other systems and feedback loops. I think the trouble also is when someone is either in a low energy availability state, and or just staying too lean, is that they don't know that they're in a low energy availability state necessarily, because maybe they're not just, maybe they've tuned out to some of those markers, and maybe it's only after they've come out of it and in hindsight they're like, oh, okay, now I appreciate that I wasn't where I needed to be.
Yeah, it can become your new normal. Like,
Yeah.
oh, everyone just feels this tired or whatever. I always think about that. Like, I seem to be very sensitive to sleep disruption. So I really notice if I get a little bit of sleep disruption. And I'm just like, I normally have amazing sleep. Like, I can't even imagine other people feel day to day when they're getting like consistently 6 hours of like broken sleep. but that's just their normal, and they
Uh-huh.
don't, they maybe haven't got the awareness to recognize how good they could feel. Or it's like when people regularly drink alcohol and then they maybe cut it out for 6 months, and then you talk to them and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much better I feel for
Yeah.
not having those, like, that regular alcohol in my life.
Yeah. Well, Matthew Walker said it, I think, is like, people who are sleep deprived often don't know they're sleep deprived. And and it's always going to stay with me, but many of the athletes that I treated who had concussion, they didn't know how bad they were until they were fully recovered after from their concussion. And sometimes they would lie in their assessment because they thought, oh no, I was a X or a Y. But then when we kind of reassess them a couple of weeks down the line, they'd be like, oh no, I really no, that wasn't true at all. I'm like,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's hard to have that self perspective and awareness when you've so long been in that state. And
I
I
think,
think that's
yeah,
where coaching or consulting with someone who's got a lot of experience can come in, because they can sometimes recognize the signs and signals that you might not be able to.
yeah. I think there's a certain. I think sometimes we can want an outcome so much that we are not honest with ourselves, and I like we might want something to be the case, and we're just lying to ourselves when we've got to be honest and just say like, no, I'm not right. I want things to be a different way, but I know I'm not right now. So I just need to be honest and say, hey, no.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, I think that was a good place to end the podcast. We got through all the questions. I will be asking for new questions for next week. I didn't this week because we had those ones lagging. And
Yeah.
also, I knew we'd spend quite a bit of time talking about my trip. If anyone has any specific questions about the trip, you can comment in YouTube or drop me a DM
Yeah.
or what have you. Like we've said, the hypertrophic time chamber over on Instagram is where you can ask questions, which I'll request them the day before we do this. So on like a Wednesday, it stays there for 24 hours. And then so you can ask within that window. It'd be great to have your questions. Thank you as always for all your questions. And yeah, anything else you want to leave the listeners with, Mike?
No, it helps you go Super Saiyan as well.
Well, going into the
Going
hypertrophic
into
time
the
chamber, yeah.
hypertrophic time pain, you grow muscle and you grow blonde hair slowly over time, follicle by
I'm
follicle.
I may more regularly do Q&As in there, because one of my other lessons, I will say this very briefly at the end of the trip, was I do too many stories. And by doing less stories, I get many more views. And I think that's been a good lesson where I'm going to do less stories. And so I'm going to less often do Q&As on my story, because inevitably you end up doing a lot of stories there. And I'll more often do that sort of in-depth stuff in that group versus doing it there. And I'll just use my story a bit less to just showcase bits and pieces behind the scenes. So that was a bit of a business lesson for the coaches who listen. Maybe it will work for them. But one day, Mike, I need to look, but I think it was 13,000 views on a story.
13,000.
Yes. And I
Ooh.
was regularly getting like 8,000, and it's continued to be that high since returning, which is much higher than I would typically, like double my normal, and my normal good views is double that. So pretty
That's
wild.
so interesting.
Mm.
Because that was my first question and thought. I was like, oh, is it just because you're on holiday and those holiday type pictures are
I think that
attracting?
helped,
Mm.
but
I,
yeah,
d- I, I don't know why, but I think sometimes that social and reality type thing that I don't know, maybe Instagram is kind of set up for those sorts of things, or people
I
just
know
like
for
it in
me
general.
personally, I find it really interesting. If I see someone I know, like if you were to go on holiday, I'd want to watch your stories. It's probably similar where Steph Noble was on holiday and you saw
Yeah,
her there and you're like, oh, I want to look at all of these. There's
yeah,
some, you get a bit of an insight into that. So there's definitely something to that. And I think that's a just good reminder to share some bits and pieces behind the scenes, and not just, yeah. I one of the things I think some people can do with their stories, and I definitely used to do this, is not respect them. Like I just put up a story in it. If I was putting up a post or a reel or whatever, there'd always be time and effort put into that to make sure it was valuable and good. Whereas a story, it's like, oh, it goes after 24 hours, so just frivolously put it out there. Whereas now I'm like, people's attention spans are so short. If you put up a story that's like not engaging and a bit boring, they switch off. They don't want to see it. So I'm like, I almost have to treat my stories just like, put the same level of precedence as a reel or a carousel or whatever. So yeah, that's one of my lessons. And Ada's here now.
Hello, Ada. Her
She's
coat
got a
looks
new
really
collar
good
on.
at the moment.
Yeah, she's had a nice haircut.
There we go.
She's so difficult. Yeah, on that final note, I guess we'll say goodbye. Thank you for listening as always, guys. We appreciate all your comments, all your questions, all your subscribes, all your thumbs up, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you later, guys. Bye.